What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It is Thursday, May 12th. Welcome to the Volleyball Source Podcast. My name is Everett DeLorme, and today we are going to be breaking down the Team Canada men's volleyball roster for 2022. Now, if you're here, you probably already know this is going to be a vastly different season than we've seen in over a decade from this team. We've got a new coaching staff, a brand new coaching staff. We've got a whole bunch of retirees. We've got a whole bunch of new faces. So it's going to be a really interesting season for Team Canada men's volleyball. Yesterday, on May 11th, the 25-man roster came out for the VNL tournament, so both for the men and the women. Today we're just going to be breaking down the men, and then I'm going to get to the women hopefully tomorrow or early next week. Work permitting, but we're going to get to the women as well. Now, before we jump into the 25-man roster, I think the first thing that we're going to need to do here is jump into the coaching staff. As we talked about on the 9x9 a little bit earlier in this year, Team Canada will have a brand new coaching staff led by none other than this man right here on your screen, Mr. Ben Josephson. Now, Team Canada has been under the tutelage, if you will, of Glenn Hogue, more or less since 2007. Of course, there was that little bit of a blip time where Stefan Antiga took over the team, but let's be honest, Antiga is just, Hogue 2.0. They spent a lot of time working together, both with a player-coach relationship and in other ways as well. So it wasn't too far off from what we had seen with Glenn Hogue. And then, of course, he came back once Antiga left the team after just a couple of years. But now this is a brand new direction for Team Canada men's volleyball. In many ways. Now, the coaching staff for Team Canada is going to be, of course, led by Glenn Hogue. That's a bad mistake. I'm gonna have to get used to that one. Led by Ben Josephson, of course. First name we see there on the list, Joe Trinzi. Now, most Canadian volleyball fans might not be aware of who Joe Trinzi is. He was an assistant coach alongside Tom Black and the women's team when Ben Josephson was, of course, also an assistant coach. And I know that those two created a relationship there. Since then, Trinzi has been in the U.S. coaching, being one of the coaches for the Athletes Unlimited tournament series. So, and he also comes with a wealth of NCAA knowledge. So I know that those two had a good vibe coaching together with the women's team back in 2019. So it's good to see those two back together. And the next one on the list is a relationship that, if you're in the know, you know is happening. Stefan Hubner, who is the head coach of SVG Lüneburg of the German Bundesliga. Now, we all know, if you follow me, you know how many Canadian athletes have played at Lüneburg over the years. And they had two this past year with Pearson Ishenko and Tyler Kozlowski, who just announced his retirement. Of course, both of those guys were Spartans. Sclater played there. Shearhorn played there. Marshall played there. Schreimer played there. The list goes on and on. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Epp going there next year. Although that's never mind. They have Joe Worsley. Regardless, so that's a very, very strong relationship that has come together there, and it's going to be interesting because other than Ben and Joe Trinzi's kind of international experience with the women's national team, this is a roster that's really lacking experience at the international level, and it's lacking a lot of pro experience. So it's really good to have that influence coming in from a guy who knows the professional volleyball and knows European volleyball as well. And then finally, this is my favorite part of this roster, the fact that Brock Daviduk is going to be an assistant coach, because in U Sports, it's the biggest rivalry we have, Trinity Western and the Alberta Golden Bears, and the fact that the two best coaches in Canada have the ability to work hand in hand. Now, that being said, just because it's a rivalry, I would never ever say that there is any bad blood or anything like that between these coaches. I think that there's the utmost respect, and I've only ever heard them speak admirably about one another and about each other's teams and programs. But we saw how good that Alberta team became this year, or not became. They were already good, but kind of how they worked throughout the year and to end up as national champions, and really truly the only team to be able to take down Trinity Western. So now we're seeing both of the best volleyball minds in Canada, who both come from a little different schools of thought as well, who are going to be working together. I absolutely love it, and I think it's just really doubling down on the fact that we don't need to go get outside guys anymore. We don't need to go get outside talent. All of our talent is homegrown, and that comes from both the player perspective and the coaching side of things. You're going to see here as well that there's quite the breadth of programs. It looks like there's going to be 6 different teams with a Next Gen Pan Am Cup, Next Gen Final 6, and I'm guessing that's 2 different teams because they're coached by two different people. Of course, we've got Dan Lewis, the longtime Maple Volley legend, who was the assistant coach underneath Glenn Hogue. He's still in the program, still running the NEP, so he gets the next gen team alongside of Brad Hudson from UBCO, and of course Grant Wilson, who does such a great job at Brandon. Then you've got Dan Oda, the legend from Dalhousie University, so really touching every single corner of Canada with his coaching staff, who's going to be coaching there. Then with the Youth 23 team, you've got Mike Hawkins from UBC, Chris Voth, who's been coaching in Switzerland, and Adam Schreimer. And then finally, for the U21 coach, you're going to have Mike Hawkins, Sean McKay, who does a fantastic job as Saskatchewan, Nate Groenveld from York, and Mike Stevens from Team Manitoba. Now, if there's one criticism that I had in the past of the Glenn Hogue era of volleyball, was that the coaching staff specifically was very Quebec centric. Like if you go down, of course, we had Glenn, Julien Boucher, who's the technical director from Quebec, Glenn Hogue, Vincent Pichette, George Laplante, Gino. The list goes on, and I'm not to say that these aren't quality coaches, international level coaches, but it seemed interesting that all of our coaches and so many coaches throughout the staff, and I mean I know a few other kind of got sprinkled in there, but it was a majorly Quebec coaching roster. It's great to see that we're reaching kind of into every corner of Canada, and we're seeing this collaborative work ethic. Effort between all of these people throughout Canadian volleyball. So I'm really excited to see that that kind of come to fruition and continue working. All right, now that we have the coaches set in stone, let's get to the roster. What we all came to see here. All right, we've got it here. Well, I'm just going to read through the list, and then I'll take you to another screen to break some things down. We got actually, I should make sure that people, you can see fine. Great. Number 1, Jordan Canham, coming out of University of Alberta, had a fantastic season, was a huge part, a massive part, maybe the biggest part in their national championship run this year. Matt Neves, number 2, another opposite coming out of UBC. He was injured late into the season, but he is long, touches well over 12 feet. And I know that some of his coaches at UBC make comparisons with Matt Anderson, and I was questionable at first, but once I saw Neves play in person, not at all. Jesse Elser, of course, played a lot with the junior national team. We've seen him represent Canada multiple times before, including with Trinity Western. So no surprise there. He can solidify things on the left side and can also play some libero as well. Nick Hogue, one of the returning guys from the OG team. We had some retirements. We're going to talk about that in a second. You would have thought that maybe with Glenn Hogue, his father, leaving, that Nick might go too. But I heard an interview with him, and I believe it was on Passing Dimes, saying that he's ready to go and wants to continue. And I mean, that's absolutely massive. Nick is still a top-tier talent and has one of the best shoulders in the game. So always a pleasure to watch him play. Of course, Eric Lepke, sliding in, had a pretty decent season this year at Padova in Italy in his second year professionally. Next up in the middle, Danny Demyanenko, fresh off, actually, congratulations, Danny, fresh off a French LNV championship yesterday with Montpellier. He was a huge member of that roster, so big shout out to him, and he's going to be a huge member of this roster too this year. Next up, we've got Stephen Marr. Stephen Marr came off a low-key fantastic season with Cisterna in Italy, was their top scorer, and I do believe he signed a big contract with Monza next year, so he is going to be taking on a huge load, if not the biggest load of this team moving forward this year. Next up, we got a couple of setters. Brett Walsh, who's playing fantastically at PAOK, who's leading them, and it's looking like they're gonna win it all if they haven't already. I haven't really been following it too closely, but having an absolutely fantastic run in Greece this year, and you know what? I think this may be his year, but maybe not if the guy beside him has anything to do with it. The wily old veteran now, Jay Blankenau, coming off maybe what some people would say might be a disappointing season in Poland. Maybe not seeing the court time that he would have hoped or would have expected playing for Warsaw. And of course his team missing out on the playoffs as well too. So not too great there. Coming in but of course Jay is still a world class setter. We saw that what he was able to do for Team Canada in the last World Championships in 2018. So, at any time you've got Jay leading your team, you're fine. Those setter decisions that Benjo has to make, good problems to have. One decision he may not have to make, and we'll talk about other reasons why later, is who's going to slate in at the opposite position. Homerism aside, this, it's pretty obvious that Ryan Sclater is the number one option for Team Canada this year. Coming off a pretty decent season with Seth, maybe a bit down from his other ones, but still, once again, still rocking at a high clip, and it's going to be very interested to see how he's using this offense this year. A newcomer to the squad as well, Pearson Ishenko in the middle, has played for the past 2 years for the aforementioned Stefan Hubner at Lunenburg. He's had some B team experience. He's had some junior team experience, so it's going to be interesting to see him slot in for the senior national team. One guy who's really going to be relied on heavily, and who also had a fantastic year with Friedrichshafen, finishing second in the German Bundesliga and playing some Champions League as well, is going to be Lucas van Verkel in the middle. Of course, with some of the other retirements and injuries we've seen from this team, Van Berkel is really going to be kind of one of the centerpieces that we have down the middle. And you know what? I've really liked seeing his progression over the past few years. It seemed like for a while, he was kind of slated into that third spot, but leading up to that run in 2022, he started really taking things to the next level, and I think we really saw it this year again with Friedrichshafen. He had a really good year. Next up, another newcomer. I'm not entirely sure if we're going to see him on the senior team in VNL at any point, but we're definitely going to be seeing him on the next gen team. I think Max Elgert had one of the biggest glow-ups, if you will, in Canadian volleyball, in youth sports, coming out of the hiatus years from COVID. Really loved seeing what he was able to do. I mean, if Jordan Cannon was the fork for Alberta winning the national championship, then Max Elgert was the knife, and he was just dishing butter the entire tournament long. It was so much fun to watch him. He's gotten a little bit bigger. His serve is a little bit more lethal, just because of the depth that we have in the setters, with both Brett and Jay coming back, and then of course Derek Epp, who's also previously set for the team. I don't think he's going to be slotted in with the A guys at any point in the season, but I think he's a guy to watch, especially as he matures and moves into pro volleyball over the next few years. One guy who is also going to be really interesting guy to watch is the next guy on this list. Having spent this past season playing in Serbia, when everything went down with COVID, he opted to go play professionally, and that is going to be Xander Ketrazinski. And if you're a fan of Canadian volleyball, you know who this guy is. You know the Ketrazinski name. You know the offensive power that he has the ability to possess. Now, he's been kind of a little bit off the radar playing in Serbia and before that in Qatar. So it's going to be interesting to see how he fits in. I personally think that Xander has the raw power to play at that international level, both from the baseline and hitting, front row, back row. His blocking's pretty good too, and he's very much an all-around volleyball player. So, with without, I mean, might as well say it now. There's no Schwan Vernon Evans on this list. You can see all the way, pretty much all the way to the bottom there. So yeah, Xander is going to probably, in my opinion, it's either him or Matt Neves, and I think both of them are going to get a shot to slot in behind Ryan Sclater. Now, the next name on this list is probably the guy I'm the most happy for, and that is Mark Wilson. If you don't know Mark Wilson, I did a podcast with him you're going to have to go back to like the 2.0, like early days of the 2.0 version of the Volleyball Source podcast last year. He just picked up his second straight championship with Karlovarsko in the Czech League. This is a guy who played for the University of Guelph, grinded his way up, did FTC, really did all of the steps. And he's a guy from my generation. I played against them in the OVA. He got married this summer, won a second championship, just announced that he has a baby girl coming on the way. Congrats, Mark. That's outstanding. And now he's being named to the 25-man roster. Just a guy who's grinded. He's put the time in. And I know a buddy of mine recently asked me, is Mark ever going to get a sniff at the national team? And I was just like, no way. So, to me, Mark must have gone out there, or like put himself out there to play. And the fact that, hey, he just won a championship and now he's being named on the 25-man roster, couldn't be happier for the guy. So, Mark, congratulations. And I mean, hey, let's also be real here. He's a good talent. He has Champions League experience. He's played against teams like Trentino. He's played at that international level, and he knows how to win. So, you know what? With some retirements and some injuries down the middle of this year, maybe we see him slide in. One guy I'm not too sure we're going to see at all is going to be Jordan Snitzer, coming out of Trinity. I know he's had a pretty good year this year, but I'd like to see him a little bit more. It's going to be great for him to be in the gym, training with these guys. Are going to be fantastic. Maybe the benefit of having your university, or former, now I guess, university coach be the national team coach. But hey, that it is what it is. A surprise name. If you had asked me a year ago if we'd ever see this guy's name on the list for Team Canada ever again, I would have said no. But huge congratulations and big welcome back to Mr. Riley Barnes. We talked about Brett Walsh. He's been playing on that PAOK team this year alongside another Canadian, Andre Brown. And it looks like he went and snagged his good old buddy Riley Barnes from retirement, bring him back out of retirement, and you know what? It's been working out because Riley's been balling for PAOK. Now we're going to see him back in the red and white. Absolutely love to see Riley Barnes. It was a sad day for me when I found out he had retired. So love to see him back. It's going to be a lot of fun. Next up, the only L you're going to see on this list, the only official one, and of course I'm not meaning like the big L like the kids call it these days, but the only libero we've got out there, and it's a guy I'm super excited to see, Justin Louis, coming in as a libero. Now, is he going to be the starting libero? I'm not entirely sure. Maybe we see one of the veterans, like maybe a Nick Hogue slots in the libero. We've seen that in the past. Maybe we throw in Eric Lepke to work on a little bit of passing, get some reps in. Who knows? But I've been saying for a long time, I really think Justin Louis is the future of the libero position. Now, there's no Blair Band on this list, but he's been dealing with injuries all year, playing in Germany. He's playing alongside Lucas van Berkel at Friedrichshafen. So I don't think that we need to go get other people, but it's great the fact that we have Justin Louis, because I think he's a top-tier talent. Just finished up his time at Stanford. I've watched him, since he was a young kid playing for Durham Attack Volleyball Club. He reads the game like no other, and he's so intellectual. He's another guy that I've done a podcast with, and you can tell he's so smart and so analytical. I'm super excited to see where this kid goes next. And yeah, it's gonna be fun. I think he's great. Next up, this is a guy that I think might make some splashes. you know what, like we saw Lepke. I think of all the university guys, I think Brody Hofer might be the one guy to kind of break the senior national team roster. He has the physicality. He played on that junior team with Ketrzinski a few years ago, and I think Brody Hofer has the ability to be a top level outside talent internationally, and I think we might get the first taste of it this year. I know some people in the Discord are very high on Brody and think that he's going to kind of come in and wreak havoc. I think my expectations are a little bit more modest. I think he's going to be able to come in once in a while, be on the roster sometimes, maybe be that like 13th, 14th guy, but great to see him on this 25-man roster, and I know that he's going to gain so much by being on in that gym. Next up, we have his setter at Trinity Western, and this is a guy we've already seen suit up for the Maple Volleys. Looking back at that 2019 World Cup, really did a fantastic job then. And you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if he puts pressure on both Walsh and blanking out right off the bat, and to start getting some setting time. And you know what, I wouldn't be surprised if we see him play some matches in VNL. I think it would be smart for Coach Benjo to kind of try out the three of them to figure out how, who fits best with this team, and to see where it goes. There's so much to be decided, like what type of offense are they going to run, how is the blocking relationship, how is everything going to be work. Canada has developed such a definitive style over the years. Is Benjo going to be building on that? I believe he will. Or is he going to choose to kind of switch it up? Trinity's always played a pretty distinctive style compared to the rest of U sports, for better or for worse. I know for this year running that 6-2 maybe didn't work for them for the best, especially in the finals. Only in the finals, actually, let's say, because they won anything else. But yeah, there's just so much unknown that we don't know. So I'm excited to get talking to Benjo and get to Ottawa for VNL and other stuff. But yeah, Derek Epp is definitely a guy that we're going to see challenging for court time this year. And to be honest, VNL is going to be a race for those three setters to be. I can only see us bringing two setters to the World Championships in the fall. So for me, VNL is going to be a race between those three guys, and I think it's going to be fun. This next guy is a guy that I never thought I'd see on a Team Canada roster, because in my mind he never fit the typecast of what Team Canada was looking for in the middle position. Right? It's kind of the reason why maybe Demianenko hasn't gotten as many sniffs in the past few years, despite having some pretty good pro years. But Jackson Howe now, especially since one of his biggest fans and his coach for the past few years is now the head coach, is like I'm still. He works so well at U Sport, and he's so explosively offensive, and he's a great blocker, and he closes very quickly at the U Sport level. But he is a little bit undersized, so I'm not entirely sure how Jackson Howe is going to fit into the international game. He is going to be one of the biggest question marks, but also has the biggest upside and the biggest potential to me. Because if Benjo can find a way for him to work in the international game, or if he can find a way for him to work into the international game, I could see him doing some damage. It's really going to be on the blocking side, because everyone knows, we've seen it on Instagram, he has an international attacking level. There's no doubt about it. No doubt about it whatsoever. As we come up to the bottom of this list now, we have Brandon Coppers, number 22. Now, Coppers maybe taking a bit of a step back, as some might see it, going to play in the Polish First Division, so just a step down from the Plus-Liga, but had a really, really good season in the Polish First Division, and playing for a team that's fighting for promotion. So he's out there, he's getting the minutes. To me, in my opinion, it's probably better that he's playing on a second division team and getting touches and getting out there and getting minutes, rather than playing on a first division team and not necessarily getting to see any court time. Next up, one guy who I'm very excited to say made it out of the clutches of Jungle Music Group, if I may, Finn McCarthy. Now, Finn McCarthy is a guy that we haven't really seen or heard much of. He spent some time at the NEP, played a little bit of pro in France, and of course was a huge part of that 2018 championship run for UBC. Now, no surprise, Benjo would have picked him. He did have a really, really good year playing for Prague in the Czech league, and actually they lost in the finals to Mark Wilson's Carlo Varsko. So he's been out there, he's been getting minutes, he's getting touch, he's playing in a pretty good league, and we saw what he has the ability to do. He's one of the most athletic players I've ever seen, and like he was a huge part of that UBC championship winning team as a rookie, and then went straight to pro, and has kind of struggled to find some time recently. But man, I really think that he could be a guy, and I think he's versatile. He can play on the right, he can play in the middle, he can kind of do it all right. Finally, only two more names on the list. Matthias Elser coming into the setter. Of course, I think in the ranking of setters, he's going to be kind of the last one slotting in at 4 or 5. I guess. No, I still give it to Elgert, the way Elgert's been played this year. I definitely still give it to him. But he's going to be slotting in. And then finally, Sam Cooper, outside hitter out of McMaster. We know he's explosive. He's big from the baseline. So he's another guy, one of the few, I guess, non-Trinity guys to make the roster. Real quick, just going to jump over to the comments on the YouTube channel. OUA has had a tough outing, but still team seems like quite a bias for Can West from Kevin Chien. Yeah, there's a bias for Can West because there's flat out better. I mean, like, I don't know, like guys like maybe like Eric Siskna, but I still think he's a little undersized to be playing at this level, but he's still eligible for teams like the U23 team. You mentioned Cole K and Logan House. I mean, Cole K has been missing, let's say, from UCLA for most of the season. We didn't really see him play a lot, so I don't know if that's injuries or whatnot, but I mean, we haven't really seen much from him. I know he's a top tier talent, but yeah, we haven't really seen much from him there. And then Logan House, I know Logan House is a physical guy, and once again, I think he's a guy who's going to be eligible to play for that U23 team or the next gen team. As HMC Ottawa mentions, like those guys should be on the next gen teams for sure, right? And get decent playing time at the Pan Am Cup and Pan Am Final Six, like absolutely. That's exactly what's going to happen. Like this 25-man roster is strictly for VNL, but like the full Team Canada scope is going to go down much deeper than this. Let's just jump over here to this is the depth chart that I've created. It's super big or super versatile. Obviously, oops, didn't want to do that. Obviously, it's super modern. But yeah, this is how I've broken things down. Finally, one more question I haven't gotten to from Rookie of the Year Philip Lauder. Louis over Pereira. Now you'll see down here Omissions. I have Pereira down here. Now, as much as I'd love to see Jordan Pereira in this position, and as much as I'd love to see him succeed here, I don't necessarily disagree with this call, especially with the fact that you've got Blair Band, who's definitely probably going to be coming back for that that World Championship run. You can't have more than one or two liberos at a time, and I think Pereira, like we've seen him in that jersey before, and it hasn't really worked out. He didn't really get much playing time last year. Even at times when, in the past when he's played for the junior team, I thought sometimes he got targeted. Even at the U Sports level, he still gets targeted sometimes. Now, I've seen the peak side of Jordan Pereira, and I know that he has the peak end ability to play at this level. But for me, I just necessarily haven't really seen that consistency, and it's something I've always craved from watching him play. And I do believe I've seen him quite a bit. Now, that doesn't have to be said that like he's never going to get the chance again. I think he's a a guy that, we all know how difficult it is for North American players as liberos to play overseas, but I think that he's a guy that 100% has a shot, and will definitely probably be see playing professionally. But as I said, like I could see him on this team, and I'd love to see him on this team, but I'm not surprised. I'm not seeing him on this team. A few other omissions, and one that I keep on meaning to add, so we're just gonna add it here live. Here is the missing players from last year. Now, these first two are the ones that hurt the most. Let's be honest here. We haven't seen a team that didn't feature Gord Perrin since 2011, right? Some of these kids that are on the 25-man roster team didn't even start playing volleyball when Gord Perrin joined the national team, right? So I think that's going to be a huge loss, as is going to be Grant Viagrass. We talked about it on the 9x9 when he retired, 100% in his prime, and still to this day he's still an international, like a high level middle, and was one of the best in his time, and he's still showing it in the Turkish league. But ultimately, two guys who really put the team on their backs, and two guys who led the culture, who led this team and led the growth of this team. Two guys who, when Glenn Hogue, stepped away, and we had Antigua, and we had that first, that post 2016 retiree with, Gavin and Rudy, and of course Lewis, and guys like Simac, and so on and so forth. Dallas Sunyas, of course. Those guys were the guys that really pushed the culture and pushed what being in Maple Volley meant. So the fact that they're not going to be coming back is a massive blow to this roster. There's no way that you can lose a guy like Gord Perrin and lose a guy like Graham Viagrass, and yeah, it's a huge hole. I, for one, was a little surprised. I would have loved to see them on this team, but at the same time, these guys have put in hours and hours and hours of blood, sweat, and tears for this team. So if anyone deserves some time off and some time away from the national team, I'm never going to say that they're completely retired, because we've seen how that happens before, both in volleyball and specifically in Canadian volleyball. And let's be honest, I'd love to see them make a run like 2024. Boys, like, just get some rest. Let's suit back up in maybe next season, 2024. We'll make a good run of things. And yeah, because I mean, Gord has a banger year in Novosibirsk, just lost in the Russian League finals, is going to play in Verona next year in Italy. So he's still got it. He's still got it. The boy's still got it. The next omission that we're seeing here from this team is another huge surprise one. But of course, this isn't a retiree. This is just Shawan Vernon Evans taking VNL off. And I know, especially in the Discord, there's some interesting discussions. There's some discussions about it. But to me, like, I was gonna message him and ask why, but I don't really think I need to. This is a guy who, since he was in high school, was like being touted as the next big thing. And at 18 years old, 17 years old, he was off to the FTC under Vincent Pichette. And I know for a fact, I've heard stories about how hard it was for him in that first year. A guy at 19 years old that was playing professionally overseas in Poland, who was playing for, helping Team Canada win a bronze at World League in 2017 at 19 years old. And he's had a lot of really good seasons in the year. A fantastic run, a playoff run in Warsaw when Kurek got hurt. A fantastic year where he scored well over 300 points for Ravenna in the Italian league. This past year, he was, a top 5, like a top 2 hitter, top 5 scorer in Japan. Up against guys like Kurek once again. So he still got it, but I think it's important for him to kind of take some time off and to let his body recover a little bit. We know how hard it is to be a volleyball player. Like, they don't get the big salaries, they don't get the big private jets and stuff like that, and it's like a 12 month a year gig. And so I'm kind of happy for Shawan, the fact that he has the ability to take that time off, take a breather, and take some time for himself. Right? This still allows him to come in for the World Championships. Right? If he's available for the World Championships, you take him, especially with the year that he just had in Japan. But yeah, Shawan, go take some time off, take some rest, and when you're ready to ball out again, we'll happily have you. Blair Ban injured, as we mentioned before, so he's going to be a huge hole. But once he's ready to come back, we'll happily have him. One guy that is very interesting that he's not there for me is going to be Stephen Marshall, and I haven't heard anything from him or about him. But Marshall played in France this year for Nice, I believe, and can still ball out, can still play. He's playing on the left side. We've seen him play libero, especially with no ban. You kind of expect him to be here. Plus, his university coach is now running the team. He's a former Spartan. It just seems for a lot of reasons for Stephen Marshall to be on this team, but he's not. He's not on this roster. And yeah, I would like to see him there once again, but unfortunately, he's not. So I'm not entirely sure if that's the end of Stephen Marshall as a Maple Volley. If it is, Marshall, the Ice Cream Man, thank you for everything you've done. Haven't had the chance to properly thank you on another show, so we'll do it here. But if you're not done, come on back. We'd love to have you. And finally, one of the biggest holes, another big hole, a guy who has really been blooming and blossoming really well over the past couple seasons is Arthur Schwartz. Now, he suffered that knee injury for playing for Cisterna earlier this season, had to get surgery, and is still recovering. He will not be available for VNL. Maybe we're going to be able to see him come World Championship time, but who knows? Moving up here into, this is like my little depth chart on the left side. I think that these four guys are really going to lead the way. Of course, Riley Barnes, we haven't seen him at the international level a little bit, but he's still got it. Obviously, he's still got it. He's still going to be able to ball out. But you know what? For me, it's really going to be these two guys running the way with Lepke getting in there as well. Like that's going to be the trio of outsides that we're going to run with. I suspect for most of VNL. Mar has been an absolute monster in Italy the past few years. Nick Hogue is one of the most veteran guys we have. But that Mar Lepke duo there on the left side, it's going to be tasty. It's going to be interesting. I could see and past that, I could see Coppers and Hofer get in there once in a while. If injuries happen, something else. I think those are going to be the first guys off the bench. Down the middle, this is where we've got some holes. Of course, losing Viagrass and losing Schwartz. As I said before, I think Lucas Van Berkel is going to be our go-to guy in the middle, followed up by Danny Demyanenko. This team overall, I think, is going to be a little bit smaller, going to play a little bit faster than we have in the past, especially without Shawan. Means we're going to be able to run it really fast to the pin. So having some smaller middles is going to be interesting. What? Sorry, I have like some fluff or hair or something that got in my throat. Sorry, furball. Apologize if you're listening on audio. Next guys up, the two guys with pro experience here, Pierzchenko, Mark Wilson. Now, Pierzchenko has been having decent seasons in Lunenburg. I was kind of expecting a little bit more for him, especially this year playing with a setter like Joe Worsley. Has shown flashes of brilliance at times, but hasn't really shown that consistency yet. So I'm really hoping that some international level play and that time in the Team Canada gym will help him find that consistency. I would love to see Mark Wilson as well. Just another guy who knows that pro game, has played at the international level, has played at the highest level in Champions League. So absolutely, I could see him getting some minutes. To me, I don't think Finn or Jordan are going to be getting in just yet. Like, I think that these five guys, I think we might see flashes of how used sparingly, but who knows? Maybe Benjo will be a little bit liberal with his decision. We won't know until we see it. Next note, moving forward over to the opposite. Sclater is going to be the number one. We talked about it before. I think Ketrzynski should be the number two on paper. He's been playing professionally as opposed to youth sports, and we saw that injury to Neves late in the season. So I think Ketrzynski has the edge, but I wouldn't be surprised to see either one of them. I don't really think Jordan Cannon is going to be fitting in on the VNL roster as well. Like, I don't think we're ever going to see him at any of the weekends. He's got a fantastic shoulder. He's got a big reach, big jump and stuff like that. He's a little undersized to be an opposite, though, however. Not unlike Ryan Sclater. I think he's a little bit smaller than Sclater, but, considering the guys in front of him, I think let's let Xander and Matt have a run at things, and then we'll see from there. The setter position, I think, is going to be the most interesting position. As I mentioned before, I don't think Max and Matthias will be featured at all, but it's going to be very interesting to see between Brett Walsh, Jay Blankenau, and Derek Epp. Personally, I think this is going to be Brett Walsh's team for the next little bit. We saw him really coming into his own in 2019. He even won a VNL Setter of the Week at one point. So we know that he has the ability to be a top tier setter. We know he has a ability to lead teams to championships, as we saw at Alberta, as we're seeing right now in Greece. Saw him set a really good Halkbank team in Turkey last year, and before that, doing a fantastic job with Knack Roselair and leading them, to another berth in the Champions League, which they haven't really been able to do since there. I don't know, actually, that's Massaic. I take that back. But still, I think Brett has the ability, and I don't know if Jay will have that connection with some of the younger guys. I could be completely wrong, but then again, with the smaller ball lineup that we have, that may suit Jay Blankenau's style of setting very, very well. So that's why I think it's such an open race between those three guys. And then finally, Derek Epp. A little bit disappointing not having to win the U Sport Championship at the end of the season for Trinity Western, but hey, we know that Derek Epp is a world-class talent. Plus, let's be honest, 10 of the 25 guys on this roster are Trinity Western guys. Maybe a bit of an issue, maybe a bit of a favoritism playing there, but I mean, it's not like we haven't seen favoritism in other spaces in the past in Team Canada volleyball. But that being said, there's you know what I mean, right? Yeah, going back to the Derek Epp there, as I lost my mind a little bit. I think all three of these setters could bring a different style of play, and depending on who we have on the court, they could benefit. So to me, it's really going to be a wait and see thing come the VNL. And then finally in the libero position, we're gonna have Justin Louis, who's the only one. And now I think we could see Riley or maybe Lepke, any of these guys really slot into the libero position. But ultimately, I kind of like the idea of just running with Justin Louis and him just being the guy. And you know what? If he is going to be the guy to take up the libero position after Blair Ban, let's just throw him in. See how well he swims at VNL, and I think he's gonna do well. Ultimately, do I have any predictions for this team? I think you can't go through a massive program overhaul like this program is going through right now and not take a step back. We've seen this team struggle at times without Gord Perrin. Looking back to the 2019 NORCECA Championships, we've seen this team struggle at times without Graham Vigrass. And I think, to me, Nick Hogue is going to be the new captain. Maybe Stephen Marr, but there's a lot of leadership that this team is going to need to discover and going to need to be able to find out. Right, even amongst the coaching staff, right? That's a coaching staff that's majoritarily new to the international game. So I think that this is going to be a figure it out as we go in scenario. That being said, if anyone knows Ben Josephson and his work ethic and his level of preparation, knows that this team isn't going to come in and wing it. They're going to come in with a game plan, and they're going to come in guns a-blazing. And if there's one thing we've always seen from Ben Josephson teams is that they are aggressive, and they're high octane, and they're fun to watch. And that's exactly what I'm expecting from this team as well. I think they're going to be fun to watch. Ultimately, I think errors are going to be part of like the biggest issue for this team. I think discipline in that area might be a bit of an issue, maybe a bit of serve receive as well. But I think this team is going to be a high octane offense that's going to go hard. And I think that the one characteristic of Trinity Western teams we've always seen is a really, really good blocking team. And it's funny, I've heard Benjo talk about this before, and he talks about how he develops his blocking by focusing on the offense and by developing a high octane offense. So for me, it's going to be interesting to see where this, and I keep on saying that same thing, but I do think that this is like the dawn of a new age, if you want to use that cliche. But it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with this team here. There's a lot of question marks for me, and a lot of things that we're gonna have to get answered. Real quick, just back to the comments. No disrespect, big fan of this game, but Jay Elser hit under 200, surrounded by talent in the Player of the Year setting. Him very underwhelming year for him. I don't disagree, but in the same token of Jesse Elser has been a top tier talent for a long time. Like back in his club days, he's a guy like, talk about Shawan going to the FTC at 18. Jesse Elser and Matthias Elser were going to like FTC in high school. He's been on the junior national team. He's done a lot of stuff. He has the physicality to play at that level. He has that skill set. I think a lot of his struggles this year had to do with injuries and still recovering from his surgeries. But to me, there's no question about it that Jesse Elser has that skill level and that ability to be amongst the best and the best. And I think that's why he was on the team, and maybe and maybe in a place of a guy for like Logan House. I think Logan House had a great year for Brock. But let's be honest, like he hasn't really done anything yet. He hasn't really done anything yet past playing for Brock. He had a really good time with Team Ontario, and I'm pretty sure he's played with the junior teams and stuff like that. But he's definitely gonna have a part to play in Canadian volleyball this year on one of the many teams. But I don't see him being at that VNL level yet. And I mean, maybe they'll have him in the gym, maybe he'll be there training, but not really a position to put him in just yet on the national team. Jay Elser also got replaced at Pan Am last year by M. Elser in the playoffs. Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I think we've seen at times where Jesse Elser has been arguably one of the best players in the country. And then there has other times that he struggled. But like once again, this is a guy that's like gone through surgeries, gone through injuries and stuff like that. So let's just give him some time. And like once again, I don't really see, right? And like he is at the bottom of my list there, and I have a number of players slotted in ahead of him. But let's just give him some time and wait and see. There's not really any guys that I can think of that are really omitted from this list. But you know what? I wasn't as in tune with U Sports this year as I was normally in the past. So maybe that there's guys who played for, whether maybe it was like Calgary or Saskatchewan, like maybe a guy like Dylan Mortensen from Sask. Um, but yeah, even then, like he's like an underside right side, and we've got some really good right sides too. So, and that's not even including Vernon Evans. So, yeah, I don't really. Yeah, maybe you can question the picking of Jesse Elser, but maybe Eric Siskina instead. But yeah, I don't question this roster at all. We're gonna wrap things up shortly, but before we do that, let's look into the schedule for Team Canada. First and foremost, Canada is going to be playing an exhibition series against France. I believe it's the 2nd and 4th of June. That's going to be at the Centre Sportif de Gatineau, the Team Canada Training Center. And that's right before VNL. So I'm probably going to be going to the Saturday match. I'm going to record it. And yeah, it should be a good one. Nice little teaser against the defending Olympic champs to get things going. All right, VNL 2022 first weekend. Of course, it's going to be in Ottawa. So if you're in the Ottawa area, I want to see you out there. If you're not in the Ottawa area, come down, hang out. It's going to be a time. Can't wait. It's been way too long since 2019. 3 years later, let's go. Game 1 is going to be against Germany, and that is, I believe, on the Tuesday. Yeah, June the 7th. They don't play Wednesday or Thursday, and then they're going to play Friday night against France, Saturday night against. Friday night against France, Saturday night against Italy. So Friday night against Olympic champions France, Saturday night against European champions Italy, and then Sunday going to close it out. Sunday afternoon going to close it out against an always tough Bulgaria squad. Next up, they're going to head to Bulgaria, going to take on Australia, Poland, Serbia, and Iran. And then finally, in the last week, they're going to close it out against the always deadly and Olympic bronze medalist Argentina. Then Brazil, the home team Japan, and then finally close it out against our neighbors to the south. All right, guys. I think that's about it. If there's anything else you want to hear me talk about, write it right now in the chat, or forever hold your peace. I guess I have to give it a little bit of time to follow. Here's Mark Wilson, by the way. If you want to see what he looks like. Like, look at that. How could you not be stoked for the dude? Super happy for him. So, yeah. All right. I'm seeing thanks. HMC Ottawa, always a pleasure. Ooh, you know what we could... right now, we're just going to do a quick little promo. Check out thatvolleyball.store for all your spicy volleyball needs. Just another way to support us over here. We got t-shirts. We've got 9x9 merch, sweaters. We got 3/4 sleeves, long sleeves, hats, spicy volleyball gear. We got stickers. We got mugs, phone cases, water bottles, a little bit of everything. So yeah, go check out that volleyball store. And no other snubs or roster omissions that I think it could have cracked the roster. Like the snubs and like roster omissions, I think would all be slotting in at like the 25th position anyways. So it's not like they would have be really seeing any VNL time at all. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap it up there. Thanks for tuning in. That is the Team Canada Men's Volleyball 2022 breakdown for their VNL 25-man roster. As I said, in the next couple of days, I'm going to be doing the women's team. Super stoked for the women's team. Last year was a bit of a tease. They didn't have their full lineup. This year, I think they're going to got it. And then I think I'm also going to do one for the U.S. squad as well. Rob St. Clair from the 9x9 is going to be joining me on that. He's just super busy this weekend. He's going to be streaming volleyball on ESPN of the VLA. So you guys should check that out too. Check them out at Volleyball League of America. And yeah, go buy something on our store. It would help us a lot. All right. Peace, guys. Thanks. Have a good one.